Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Kendall Bierman, licensed therapist specializing in eating disorders and substance use. And so we will understand from her why so many people intellectually understand their patterns but still feel unable to change them, and what role does shame play in keeping the cycle alive. We'll explore with her how substance use often serves as a coping tool for anxiety while high functioning young adults struggle privately, and how to build a healthier relationship with food and alcohol even without full sobriety. Welcome to the show, Kendall.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and have these conversations.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Kendall. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about eating disorders, we'll talk about substance use, and much more. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, your story, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Yes, of course. So to start off, I'm a licensed therapist, as AJ said, and I am based in New Jersey in the United States, just outside of New York. Um, so I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I have been working as a therapist for, I think, 5, 6 years now. A little bit about my story. So when I went off to college, I realized that I started to struggle with my mental health a little bit, particularly anxiety. And I dealt with that through self-medication, through drinking alcohol. And so my college experience was a little bit challenging, to put it lightly. And I now have several years of sobriety under my belt. And it was because of my challenges of dealing with anxiety and dealing with drinking and substance use that actually led me to becoming a therapist. And it kind of helped me to find my purpose and my passion. And so now I'm a therapist who wants to help other young adults who are struggling with substance abuse and anxiety. And then I also have eating disorders in there. When I first started working as a therapist, I was interested in substance abuse, and that's kind of what drew me to become a therapist. But it felt almost a little bit too close to home when I first started. So I decided to hone in on eating disorders instead of substance abuse right off the bat. And I have noticed, especially as I've been working a little bit longer, that there's a really big overlap between substance use disorders and eating disorders, in particular, binge eating disorders and bulimia. And so as I did some more certifications and studying on eating disorders, and I had more clients with those challenges, I realized a lot of my clients were kind of struggling with both. And so I brought the two together. And now they're both my specialties.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kendall. To simplify things for the audience, how should they understand what you are trying to say? What is it that you are trying to do with what you are doing?
Yes. So what am I doing? I think that mental health challenges, particularly substance use disorders, have a really negative stigma, where people kind of imagine someone with a substance use disorder, um, to be, I don't know, like when I pictured it, I thought it would be someone much older than me, someone who is maybe unhoused. It just wasn't what I pictured. And I also thought that it was like a lack of willpower. And I didn't really have an understanding of what it meant to have an addiction until it became my reality. And so, as a therapist, my job, I want to help my clients who are struggling with either addiction to food or addiction to substances learn to cope in a healthier way that doesn't involve substances or food. And part of doing that means tackling stigma. And so the reason I'm here on this podcast and other podcasts is I want to make it known that anyone can struggle with these challenges, and it doesn't make them weak, and it doesn't make them, lacking willpower or discipline. If we want people to get better, if like how I got better, we have to help people to feel less shame. And so that's kind of what my role is helping people to understand why they're struggling. And then when we can have an understanding of why you're struggling, we can build compassion and then we can learn how to make changes.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kendall. So let's understand it from 2 points of view. One is that they are struggling. I want to understand for the audience, why do people, especially when they know about these things, who are intellectually very well off, they struggle with this? Is
Mhm.
it because, they don't have control over their diet because of any medical reasons? Or is it because the type of food that they are eating, processed foods, they are so addictive that they just go on eating? How does that happen? Because if you are a smart person, at one point in time you will realize, and then you will cut down, whether it is alcohol, whether it is food.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the guilt part also. Why should I be guilty of something when the whole industry is selling, industry in the sense of alcohol is being sold openly, food is being sold openly? Why does the one who is having it has to feel bad if they have gone beyond the normal person's quota? I want to understand for the common person from that perspective, Kendall.
Yeah, well, that's such a great question. And there's multiple factors here, which first, I do think like food, sugar, for instance, has been shown to be, I mean, there's kind of like what's the word, a controversy of whether food can be addictive or not. But I think that sugar does release dopamine in a person's brain, and dopamine is the thing that we can get addicted to. It's this neurotransmitter of I want more, right? And so it can be very motivating, but when more dopamine is released, it's telling us this is great, but it's not enough. I want more. And sugar is very guilty of that. So for people who are struggling with food, it could be the food that they are eating that is just much more enticing and easy to grab onto. But also what I find, whether it's alcohol or whether it's food, we live in a society that is very overstimulated and oversaturated, and we want to be distracted all the time, whether it's our cell phones or something else. We really struggle to sit and just be. And when we're done with our work for the day and there's nothing else for us to really be doing, and we're just kind of sitting there, that's the moment where a lot of people will then start staring into their refrigerator or their pantry and looking at what I have to eat. Or they'll start to pour themselves a glass of something, because the idea of sitting still and being in our body or being in distress is so uncomfortable that we want to keep distracting. So what I see is the real problem is that we don't learn in the world, I think, how to just be and how to be in our body and how to deal with boredom or distress.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for those people who are going through this, how can they, start getting help for themselves if that help is required, or any sort of, understanding for themselves that I can, pull myself back from the excess, eating or drinking part, because that is what normal people uh, should do, because it will help you feel better, live better, be better in every aspect of their life. I want to understand again from a very simple, common person's perspective, so that, even if they are on the borderline, they understand that, okay, I should not cross this particular line because it's not going to work good for me. We
Yeah.
don't go and put our hand in fire because we know that it can hurt us. We work, operate from a certain distance in whatever we are doing. When we break barriers, or things like boundaries like this, we have to understand, our brain has to understand it somewhere in a normal sense, that this is not good.
Yeah.
Being a friend is good, but beyond that, it may not work for me. Help us understand from that. I want to understand for a common person who may be around that area and is not so much of interested in crossing that boundary, but inadvertently may do that.
So I think what you are bringing up is, I mean, what I see the title is why everything in moderation doesn't work for everyone. So the difference between food, or one of the differences between an eating disorder and a substance use disorder, is that with substance use, you can just cut it out entirely. Like, for instance, I'm sober. So I haven't had anything to drink or any substances in over 7 years. And so there's no moderation with that. It's just out of my life. With food, you have to, it's harder because it's, you have to eat to survive. And so how, approaching that line of being like, okay, how do I stop myself before it gets to be unhealthy? That can be really challenging because substance use and substances, they actually rewire our brain. So if I start to rely on alcohol, let's say, it changes the reward pathway in my brain, where now anytime I'm bored, anytime I'm in distress or stressed or anxious or sad, my brain tells me reach for alcohol. And now if I try to moderate and I say I'm going to drink less, that's really hard for my brain to understand because the pathways are wired for me to go reach for alcohol. So in that case, moderation might be very, very hard. And it's actually easier to just not drink at all and rewire my brain. Um, as for like eating disorders or people who do want to try to moderate, I think the first step in trying to change your behavior is fully acknowledging the issues that are at hand. I think denial is a very powerful defense mechanism, and a defense mechanism is something that we kind of unconsciously um, initiate or have in our brain because we're too maybe scared to face the truth. And so if we're living in denial, we're not going to change anything. If we're rationalizing our drinking or our eating, we're not going to change. So we have to have full acceptance of, okay, I'm eating more than I want to, or I am restricting, or I am drinking more than I would like to. And once you have an awareness of that, I would suggest going either to talk to a therapist about it or going to a support group. And that is where you're going to learn skills, because insight is important. You have to know where you're struggling, but it's not the whole picture. And so, as a therapist, my job is to help clients fully understand where their challenges are, but then also to provide behavioral skills and challenges. Behavioral skills to help address those challenges. So, like learning to sit with ourselves, meditation is a really big one. In a world where we're constantly distracted by our phones, practicing sitting still and being in our body is a really powerful skill.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what role does shame play here? You talk also about shame. How does it become a barrier for people who can earnestly seek help and make their life better in terms of alcohol or in terms of food?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. And I just briefly touched upon denial, and shame contributes to denial. So, shame is one of those feelings, it's different than guilt in that guilt is, okay, I did something bad and I feel bad about it. Shame is, I did something bad, so I'm a bad person. And what shame makes us want to do is hide. If I'm running and hiding, I don't want anyone to see that I've see me, and I don't want to face what I've done. And if I can't face what I've done or what I'm doing, how could I possibly change it? So shame keeps people hiding. We need to tackle shame by saying, "Hey, it's okay. We understand you're struggling. Let me help you." If someone's feeling shame, they're not going to want to reach out for help because they're too scared, they're afraid they'll be rejected. So shame is like the number one thing I see that keeps people from getting help and from getting better.
Absolutely, Kendall. So, as an individual, how do I know when I should seek help from someone like you? Is it because when I will feel my health is being threatened, or is it or is it that I will feel that I should have a better life? Not everyone thinks the same way. Help us understand then how should people evaluate their health? They will think I'm feeling fine. Only when there is a problem I will go and seek help?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's different for everyone. Um, some people, and you said that, right? So some people maybe only want to see a therapist when they feel like, ooh, things are really not going well for me. I'm in crisis. So I need to go talk to someone to resolve this. And that can be very helpful. And I will also say that if you see a therapist because you're thinking, I'm not in crisis, but maybe things could be better, I think that's the best time to see a therapist. It's like seeing a primary care doctor, right? If you see a primary care doctor when you're having really bad symptoms and you're really sick, it might be too late at that point. If you see, that's not how we see our doctors. We see them every year for a physical, for a well visit, and we make sure that we stay healthy. And therapy can be the same way. If you see a therapist when you're not in crisis, I can get to know you and I can understand how you are. We can work on bettering you. And that way, when inevitably hardship comes up in life, you're better equipped to handle it. So it's sort of like preventative medicine in a way.
Right, right, Kendall. So when do you come into the picture? When is it that your clients generally come to you? Help us understand with your client profile and how do you help them? What is it that they majorly come to you for?
So most of my clients do come to me because something has happened in their life that they're feeling overwhelmed by. A lot of the clients I see are people who are maybe drinking more than they would like to, or they are eating more and they're feeling a lack of control in their life. Maybe not such a lack of control where they're completely out of control, but there's a fear of losing control. And so they come to me and they say, hey, I'm feeling this way. I'm not sure what to do. So we start to, what I do then as a therapist, I start to help them understand why they are feeling this lack of control, why they are turning to food, why they are turning to substances, and building compassion and understanding. Once that is built, we start to collect data. So usually clients, they don't want to just completely get sober or they can't cut out food. So what we do instead is we keep track of when they turn to substances or food, and I have them write down what emotions are they feeling in that moment and what are they feeling after they turn to either food or substances. And what then, when we have an understanding of like what it is that they're feeling, we can then pay attention to, okay, if you turn to food when you're feeling anxious, for instance, what are other skills that we can use instead? Maybe it's calling a friend, maybe it's meditating, maybe it's taking a shower. And so we start to replace, like create space between, all right, I'm having the urge to get food or use a substance to actually using. So what then, that's where the skills come in. So we have the urge, but let's do something else that's healthier. And so that's what I do, is helping to interrupt the urge and then the actual using.
Absolutely. In your case personally, what helped you the most? How did you manage? Did you also have to visit a therapist for that?
I did. I did visit a therapist and it was extremely helpful. Um, it's a good question. What helped me the most? It was a lot of different things. I think probably the most helpful thing was feeling that I had a lot of community support, that I wasn't alone. So I went to group therapy. And so to be in therapy with other clients who were dealing with something similar to what I was going through was very helpful. So I didn't feel alone and I didn't feel shame. In addition to that, I did something called DBT, which is a type of therapy, and that's what I'm certified in now. DBT stands for dialectical behavior therapy. And I think it's very helpful because when you're dealing with substance use, there's a lot of cravings and urges and feelings that can almost feel out of control. And dialectical behavior therapy is all about recognizing your emotions, learning to regulate your emotions, learning to deal with distress. And it gives like really practical tips and tools that helped me to learn how to deal with my strong emotions. Because I think that's the challenge that people face a lot is I have an emotion and I don't know how to deal with it. So I'm going to drink or I'm going to eat a lot of food. And so learning skills to deal with our emotions, big or small, is invaluable.
Absolutely, Kendall. So, in a nutshell, what would you like to tell people who are struggling with, alcohol as well as food?
Well, I would say that, everybody has their vice. Whether, some people are addicted to their phone and other people are addicted to alcohol. Obviously, there's a difference between the two. But my point is more that it's not a moral failing if you are finding that you are medicating through alcohol or through eating. It's just unfortunately more of a destructive addiction. And so I would want people to feel that they're not alone, that they're not failures, and that there is help. And not only help, but a life that exists that's actually a lot better without substances. I think part of what kept me from getting help sooner is I couldn't possibly imagine a life that was fun and worthwhile that didn't involve substances. But I have learned that that is just not true at all. So you're not alone. There is a better life out there. And that if you are struggling, please reach out to help. There are many providers out there, whether it's a licensed therapist or a self-help group like AA or something like that. There's a lot of support out there. You just have to find it.
Absolutely, absolutely. You are not alone. There is a better life out there, and there is a lot of support. There is so much to learn about all this from you, Kendall, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you and perhaps be your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Yes. So I am licensed in New York and New Jersey in the US. And if you're interested in working together, you can visit my website. It is www.kendallb, as in boy, therapy.com. And I am taking new clients. Just go onto my website and you can click book now. And I'll offer a free consultation call.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much.